everybody? Welcome back to Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. I'm Tristan Harlan, here with my co-host, my good friend, my good compadre, my brother from another mother, the man who's finally back from Florida, Cooper, the Juicebox Meta. Cooper, how you doing, big dog?
Eagles won the Super Bowl. I'm feeling great. 40 to 22. Garbage time scores, we all know, is 40 to 6. But besides that, I'm doing amazing, Tristan. Back on Wolf Roundtable. And it's going to be a simple episode, but we got some baseball coming up.
Yeah, we do. Opening the season against Morehead State this weekend at the Tom, and I'm sure that the team is going to be ready for the contest. And, you know, I'm ready to see what this new team under new head coach Mike Silva is going to bring. But real quick, just pausing the action, I'm still a little Cooper's Thunder. But, Easton, how do you like the apples?
Ooh.
I've wanted to say that because you were sending videos to the group chat all during the Super Bowl. There you go. Anyways, back to baseball, A-State baseball now. But, of course, Mike Silva, the new head coach, coming in from the state of Louisiana, retooling Arkansas State baseball after its tandem run by Coach Tommy Ratho. Of course, Coach Tommy Ratho is enjoying retirement. Wish him nothing but the best. But new era for A-State baseball, new field. Going to have some new, possibly a new playing field next year as over the years come. But, hey, Morehead State's here for this weekend season series. You can catch the first game Friday on ESPN+, and then no more.
Yeah, and if you want to go watch the game, you could, like Tristan said, Friday. They'll be at home. I believe that game starts at 3. I could be wrong.
Don't ask me.
All right. They play Friday, so if you get off work, want to drive over by the stadium, do that. Then Saturday, I know they play at 3, so Saturday's a busy day. If you want to go watch the women's game at noon, then go head over to the baseball game at 3, then head over back to the basketball arena around 7 to watch the men play. You're going to have an eventful day, and then after church or whenever, you can come over, watch some more baseball. But, I'm excited to see what this baseball team brings. Years past, it's kind of like, well, hopefully we can finish somewhere not dead last. But this year, there's some optimistic hope in the air, some optimism that you can have about this team, some new hope that, maybe this team will provide more than teams in years past, just because, it felt like every year we were coming in saying, well, hopefully we don't finish last. Hopefully we can get something going. Let's talk about our facility. It's terrible, blah, blah. But now, got a new video board, new turf. So you know what? It's a new team, new head coach, new year. Be sure to go out there Friday. Check out what they got planned for this season.
Right, and a lot of things are up in the air. Of course, the Red Wolves, they were picked to finish dead last by the coaches in the Sun Belt Conference. Now, again, that's kind of the story of how previous years have gone for the Red Wolves. And, of course, with the addition of Southern Miss into the Sun Belt Conference, Southern Miss, for those of you that may not be aware, they're kind of one of the better G5 baseball teams. I don't really know if you could classify it as a G5 program in baseball because no team is, better than the other when it comes to, rankings, because all the conferences play each other in some aspect. Like Arkansas State will play UAPB some of the season, Central Arkansas, Little Rock. So it's a big pool of teams that they're going to end up playing.
Yeah, and speaking with Arkansas State being picked last, it's kind of like how the women's team in basketball, they got picked last just because this is a brand new team. They don't know they really don't know what they're going to bring to the table. They can look at the other teams and be like, okay, we can figure out who's going to be where, but Arkansas State, you're bringing a new head coach. You're basically bringing back a whole brand new team. Besides, you'll still have Will French out there. You'll still have Daedric Kell out there. I'm pretty sure Vanderlilly's still out there. So you'll have some familiar faces. But overall, it's a brand new roster. So, they're picked last just because of how they've been in years past and just for the fact they don't know about this team yet. They don't know what they're going to bring to the table. But you can start figuring out how they're going to be starting this Friday.
Right. Well, we're going to take a step away. When we come back, we're going to dive into some women's basketball, and then after that, some men's basketball. So stick around. You're watching Wolf Roundtable. Where else but right here on ASU-TV. Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Now it's time to shift focus and talk about the women's basketball team here on the Arkansas State campus. And, of course, Arkansas State, they did suffer a home loss against Bowling Green in the MAC Sun Belt Conference Challenge. And, Cooper, I want to start our conversation there. Well, I mean, I know you weren't in town for that game, but what did you see, in preparation for this show?
Well, they ended up losing 75-73. It was their second home loss on the year. I could be wrong.
I believe so. They lost to Tarleton State earlier in the year.
Yeah, so second home loss. It was a bad weekend for both men's and women's team versus the MAC, both dropping a couple games. But, while it was a close loss, I just feel like it's something they can build on. It sent them back down to earth for a little bit. They're still doing great in conference, but it was one of those games you lost, and it was like, it's good to get a loss out of the way where it doesn't really necessarily matter. I mean, it matters record-wise, but at the end of the day, if it's not a conference game, it really doesn't hurt too bad. But it was a good challenge to see where this team was at, and, you can only build up from it. Because, like I said, it only matters in conference play this late in the year.
Right, and you brought up a good point, knocking the team back down to earth. But Coach Rogers in the postgame press conference, she alluded to that and was like, "Hey, that's what this team needed." Because, and I'll be honest with you, and a lot of people could disagree, like, "Oh, you got to win. Ooh, you got to win every game that you play." But no, I just think that when it comes to where they're at in the season, and you comparing to where they were at this time last year, of course, remember the MAC Sun Belt Conference Challenge knocked out the best player on the roster. And that ended up leading to them losing out the remainder of the season. And they went on to the Sun Belt Conference Tournament, and then they didn't do so hot. But now you lose one game. Nobody was injured that I'm aware of. And you retool, you refocus for these next two home conference games before you finish out on the road. And, Southern Miss is going to be a great game. That's going to be tonight. And then you move on Saturday where, doubleheader, ESPN's coming to town. You almost want to play with a chip on your shoulder because they didn't decide to do both games. They decided to do only the men. But, and while we're talking about the women, speaking of that, it brings up a good point I wanted to talk about on the show today. But, is there, and I want to be careful about how I word this, but is there any sort of maybe biases towards the men's team that, maybe the women are kind of starting to reveal a little bit? Because, the men have had, a lot of linear games now, or games that are on the mainstream ESPN.
Non-ESPN+.
Non-ESPN Plus. And the women are solely staying on ESPN Plus, whether that's road or away. So I want to ask you your perspective of it. But do you think that kind of, and I'm just going to say it, do you think that pisses them off a little bit?
I'm sure it does, but when the one game I could see them getting live TV for is when they end up playing James Madison. If you look at the women's conference standings, you have James Madison, Arkansas State, and then, you have Troy and App State, but besides that, there's such a big drop-off in talent. So it's kind of like, well, when the men's played, they're playing these, I guess, better teams in conference. But when it comes to women's, if the James Madison game doesn't get on live TV, like non-ESPN Plus, it's hard to say. But then again, when you're watching ESPN, you're turning on ESPN during weekday games or Saturday games, you're not really seeing many women's college basketball games on. If they are, it's on the ACC network solely, or the SEC, Pac-12, RIP, but you're seeing it on set networks. And something that I've noticed that where women's basketball games are getting on TV is they're playing on Sunday afternoons. That's where when NFL season's over, you turn on the TV, you'll either have a women's game on ESPN2, the SEC network, maybe even Fox or CBS. So maybe it's just the scheduling, but I bet it does make them mad. They're 11-1 in conference, and they're not getting the respect they deserve, really.
Right, and and I could be wrong, and James Madison could not have any neither. But I just wanted to bring that up because I feel like where we are, for a standpoint of media, when it comes to where we're putting games and where people are consuming games or viewing games, whether, that's at Buffalo Wild Wings, at home, at any other restaurant that you may go to on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, even a Friday after work. You see a lot of men's college basketball, but you're not seeing a lot of women's college basketball. And I know we're going to keep this A-State oriented and A-State focused, but I feel like where we are right now in 2025 and with the uprising of women's college basketball, I mean, arguably some of that stuff is better than what the WNBA is putting on, and so vice versa with the men's college basketball and the NBA. Now, I'm not saying one compares to the other or one's better than the other, but just from a overall streaming standpoint, I feel like it's easier to find these college games than it is these professional league games because, I mean, let's be real. Yes, in other leagues you have things like blackouts, and you have those in the NBA as well. But when it comes to women's college basketball, I feel like, and I'm not saying one person put that on the map or another person put it on the map, but what I'm saying is that we have such a talented team at Arkansas State University, whether it's with Coach Rogers and the women. Yes, they just took a loss to Bowling Green. Yes, Bowling Green is a half-decent team. But we are in such a fruitful area when it comes to college athletics that we're not getting to see a lot of these games being played because of it's being on ESPN Plus, and I'm sure a lot of these local chains or these local places don't want to pay, the fee to watch ESPN Plus or, whatever the calls may be. But back to my main point is that I feel like where we are from a streaming standpoint, there's no reason that this team should not have at least one game. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they need to be on ESPN every given night, but you take into account, like, hey, they're 11-1, best record that they've had in a while as a program. Sure, maybe a bone to be thrown. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, the attendance may play calls into that, and attendance is a conversation we need to have on any other given day. But from where we are right now, I just feel like the team is way too good to only be stuck on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But if you go ahead and announce a game, be like, hey, this game, last home game, this Saturday, will be on ESPN, you would definitely have a crowd show up. For some reason, if the game's on live TV, people like to show up for that. There's no difference. It's just one's produced on ESPN Plus that you have to go back and watch, or you can just turn on the TV and find it right there. Not really a difference. Now, you'll get different announcers, but I feel like it being on ESPN Plus should bring in more people because not everyone has the ESPN Plus subscription, or they really just don't use the streaming websites, streaming apps, things like that. And when you get a live ESPN game, you think, okay, this can really keep people at home because they can watch it on the TV. But this women's team, speaking of attendance, Saturday, senior night, senior day. Do we even have any is Anna Griffin a senior?
There's seniors on the team, but there's not seniors that's been in the program for a good minute.
Yeah, well, last home game of the year, Texas State, 4-8 in conference. You're seeing now 11-1. We're averaging 72. Texas State just having a pitiful year, 62 points per game, allowing 66, shooting a terrible 27.3% from the three-point field, and just got to keep on trucking, keep winning conference games, win out, get the first seed or second seed.
Right. Speaking of the Sun Belt Conference tournament, we have the graphic this week.
Yes.
But you just got to look at it and realize that this bracket is just horrible. Now
this is the men's bracket.
Now, but they're
it's
pretty
the
much
same setup.
They're pretty much the same. So you're seeing it, and it's making a triangle, and of course where the Arkansas State Red Wolves are right now, they would be playing as the second seed. They would not be playing until the semifinals. But I don't know. I'm not in charge of stuff like this, so I don't know what the idea or, what the conversation was held about when it came to this. But this is just kind of funky to me.
Yeah, if you're the bottom 11, 12, 13, and 14th seed, you're having to play game after game after game after game after game. And by the time you get to, playing a 1 seed or a 2 seed, you're tired. You're dead. You're done. Whatever. Now, the only thing that's going to do is really hold advantage towards the top seeds, which, I guess that is what they're trying to do to make the Sun Belt Conference more competitive in a way where, teams are really going all out every single conference game. And then that's why you're seeing every conference game, it seems like, for the men or women play, it is so competitive. It's like they're playing for a spot in the tournament every game because seeding matters now. I mean, it's a crazy bracket. It looks like a big old sideways Christmas tree or an airplane wing, but it's making the conference more competitive, making it more enjoyable to watch because it matters. Because if you get a top seed, you're going to have a pretty good advantage of moving on.
Right. And, again, just final remarks about this team before we wrap it up and go to a break. I mean, this team's got all the talent in the world. I'm glad they took the loss against Bowling Green when they did, because it's better to have it there to learn what these teams are going to look like as they progress and play better teams in the conference than you get, of course, in the semifinals, you get punched in the mouth and you get upset.
You're done. You're done, yeah.
But we're going to go back to break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the men's basketball team right here on ASU-TV.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. Getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
And welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable right here on ASU-TV. Now it's time to talk about the men's basketball team. And, there's been kind of a little bit of talk between, here and the Herald and a little bit other places, but Isaiah Nelson missing the game winner against Kent State in the MAC Sun Belt Conference Challenge. So I want to start our conversation there. Do you blame Isaiah Nelson? Is it just circumstances of how much time you had to put that up? Walk me through that.
I mean, you can blame, he missed the game-winning shot and things like that, and it's kind of like when a kicker misses the game-winning field goal. You get put in the situation to win, you miss it, but, it's a little bit different with basketball. You have the entire game to get something going, but, this team, I like to say they're such a good team, but they either play up to their competition or they play down to their competition. I feel like these past two games, they should have won both, in my opinion. I think they're the better team than Marshall. They're a better team than Kent State. They should have easily won those games, but this is kind of a reason where you don't like I honestly don't like how they're having the MAC Sun Belt Conference Challenge halfway through the year, where the season's almost over with, because it's a pointless game, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. You could be, let's see where you match up from the beginning to now. Well, like you said last time we had a MAC Sun Belt Challenge, star player for the women's team goes out, and then we had a couple injuries happen last year to the men when we went on the road to, I'm pretty sure, Akron.
That sounds right.
We went to Akron, and we won that game, but we ended up having a couple injuries. So while it sucks that we lost and Isaiah Nelson missed that shot, it's kind of one of those. I want to ask you a question. Should there be 2 games in the MAC Sun Belt Conference Challenge? And if so, should they move it earlier in the year? Or do you like it where one's at the beginning of the year, one's smack dab in the middle of conference play?
Well, and I'll say this. I think that where it stands right now, today, as of whatever today's date is, I don't know, I've been running around all day.
12th.
Thank you. But as it stands on February 12th, 2025, here on Red Wolf Roundtable, I hate the MAC Sun Belt Challenge. I do not like where it is. 2 games, yes, it's fine, but I don't like it where one's in the beginning of the year and one's smack dab in the middle of conference towards the tail end of career, and smack dab at the end of conference, because let's look at where other conferences are at this point. You don't see the SECs playing a non-competitive or a non-meaningful out of conference tournament style or tournament challenge style game. They're playing their rotation of SEC teams. I mean, you don't see the ACC doing it. You don't see the American doing it. Yeah, I don't realistically think any other conference is doing that but the MAC and the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
So I think you push that 2 games, you push it to the beginning of the year. You make one maybe the second game of the year, and you make the other the week before conference. See where you guys are at. Play one more non-con game just to get your final test between somebody you're not playing every year. Then you go into conference. Then you see where you guys are at. Because I mean, let's be real. Like we've mentioned, the injury issues when it comes to Arkansas State. Now, I'm not saying that's the reason for the injuries, because injuries happen at any level of competitive sports. It's just one of those things that's inevitable. But what I will say is that in my brain, and again, I'm just a college senior, 22 years old, so I'm sure there's some schmojo in Bristol or in somewhere else that knows all these things, that knows why they do it. Maybe it's the KenPom rating, maybe it's the net, who knows. But what I will say is that I think the MAC Sunbelt Challenge, while yes, I understand why they do it for money or whatever, I just don't see its value being played in February.
Yeah, there's no value because we're talking a lot about, well, we've had injuries late in the season. While yes, injuries happen any game. I would rather an injury happen if we're playing a Sunbelt opponent. Like if we're playing a James Madison, a Marshall, and App State, they're out there battling to keep that first seed. They're trying to grow their lead in the standings of conference at that first seed. But when we go on the road to a team like Kent State, who gives a crap? I mean, who cares about Kent State? I mean, Kent State could be saying, who cares about Arkansas State? But no one cares about the MAC. No one cares about the Sun Belt in February. You're focused on, okay, we're 9-3 in the standings. We need to keep on winning. Who's below us? So you're thinking about that. We're thinking about conference. I mean, yeah, we're 9-3. We have a 1-game lead above Marshall, James Madison, Troy, App State, and South Alabama. We are not worried about Kent State at all.
Right. And I think, too, and just looking at those standings, they're indicative of, your conference win or losses, so a loss or a win doesn't change that, but that's just it. If you're going to play a team 16 hours away in, the smallest town of Ohio, just to say, hey, we beat the Bobcats, or hey, we beat the Zips of Akron, then I don't get it. And I'm not trying to laugh at the schedule makers, and I'm not trying to laugh at the conference and make fun of them when I say this, but it's almost like they said, hey, here's a meaningless conference or a meaningless non-conference game. Let's throw it in the smack dab middle of your conference schedule so that more people will look at you and say, oh, hey, here's another linear game or a live TV game. Here, go play it. Or, hey, here's a guy that's averaging 25 and top 5 in the nation versus a guy in the Sun Belt who's averaging 20. Hey, let's push that on Prime TV. Or, hey, LeBron James is not playing this week. Let's just throw a random college game on ESPN because why not? Because we can't talk about the Lakers this week.
Yeah.
That's a topic for a completely different show.
Yeah.
But I just, look, and I'm going to say this, and I mean this with all the respect and all of the kindness in the world, but why are we playing a non-conference game in February? I mean, I cannot stress that question enough. I mean, as Cooper said, nobody cares about playing Kent State in February. Nobody cares about playing Arkansas State in February if you're in the MAC. What you care about is your team solidifying themselves as a number 1 or a number 2 seed in the Sun Belt Conference tournament, because as we have shown already, the tournament seeding and the way the bracket is set up, you're going to have a very lengthy bye. And if you got guys like Terrence Ford who's had injury issues, or you have Isaiah Nelson who sometimes has a little bit of injury issues, or Taryn Todd or Joseph Pinion or anybody along those lines, I'm not saying those guys are injury prone, but when you have these guys that are playing 2-3 games a week, or, in every 2 weeks, it's going to be something where you're going to want to give these guys rest, and you're going to want to give these guys the best record forward, because I don't know if anybody has told anybody this, but every year you've got to re-recruit your team because they could go God knows where else and play for God knows who else. Because, I mean, let's be real, Arkansas State has already fallen victim to the transfer portal. North Chad O'Meara, looking at you, buddy. Hope you're doing well at Baylor. But, I mean, I don't see this happening 2 years ago, and I don't think it should continue.
Yeah, and the only way, before we get to a different topic, we've been talking about it long enough, is the only way you can stop seeing that is if one of the teams goes out there and says, all right, we're going to play our starters for maybe 10 minutes of the game, and then we're just going to pull out, put a bunch of bench guys in, rotate, maybe play your starters a little bit, just keep them warm. But go out there and treat the game as a scrimmage or an exhibition game and show, like, yeah, we're proving that, being in the MAC or being in the Sun Belt, this game does not matter to if we win or lose. Unless you're undefeated, you have to win your conference to make it to the tournament. So this challenge is completely pointless. So we're going to play this game in the middle of February, smack dab in the middle of the heat of a conference race, and show you that this is stupid, there's no point in it, and why are we doing this? We're going to treat it like an exhibition game, and that's the only way it could really, get fixed. But besides that, men's play at home tonight against Southern Miss. But Saturday. We're playing Troy at 7 p.m. And you're saying, Troy, this is a big game, depending on if Arkansas State wins tonight. But if they beat Southern Miss, we'll go to 10-3, and we'll still have a one-game advantage over Troy. But, this could be battling for first place come Saturday. And, rumor has it we will be back on live TV. ESPN2 was the official announcement. I'm not going to say anything. I went on a rant last week, and, the men's team proceeded to lose 2 straight. So, you know what? I'm done defending us. Anytime I try to defend Arkansas State, it's like, hey, Cooper, screw you. We're going to lose 2 in a row after you spilled your heart out, and then we lost 2 in a row. But you know what? It's time to get back in the win column.
Well, hey, it's Valentine's Day coming up, so maybe they'll shoot you a candygram pudding.
Yeah,
maybe they'll shoot you a candygram.
I'm trying my hardest to get them exposure, but you gotta win. You can't go out there and lose after I called out a bunch of people.
Yeah, but I mean, look. Here's the thing, and this is probably why this game's on live TV. But if you go back to the conference standings and you look and say, okay, here's where Arkansas State is, here's where Troy is, and here's the thing, you got 2 teams ahead of Troy technically in the rankings.
They're all 8-4.
Well, yeah, they're all 8-4, but it matters. Troy has to depend on App State or South Alabama losing if they're not playing each other, and then they also have to worry about James Madison and Marshall losing if they're not playing each other because, it's called the Fun Belt for a reason. I mean, any team could beat anybody. I mean, there for a while, South Alabama looked like they were going to be the favorite to win the entire conference after they dismantled the Red Wolves. And then your other favorite Sun Belt school, ULM Warhawks, went in and beat them. So,
hey.
I mean, anything's possible. So, what I will say, and then I'll let Cooper say his thing, but I just think that every game from here on out is a must-win.
It is, for sure.
I mean, yes, you could have your games where it's closer and you win. You could have games where it's a blowout when you win. But believe me when I say this, and I'm not just saying this as a fan or just because I've been reading the fan pages on Facebook or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, but what I will say is that every game is a must-win, not only for conference tournament seeding, but how nice would it be to become the regular season champions in Brian Hodson's second year as the Red Wolves head guy. After he already got an extension, after he already brought all this talent, and then he's going to bring more in the offseason, how nice would it be to not only be the regular season champs in volleyball, men's basketball, and men's basketball and volleyball, because, I'm sure James Madison's going to run away with it in women's basketball.
Yeah, A-State women's, they play James Madison once in the next couple weeks. But like you're saying, must-win games. You're looking at it as Southern Miss, they're going to win. They're just not that good. And then you have Troy Saturday. The next Wednesday, you play South Alabama. And, if you remember the standings, one loss can transfer you from first place all the way down to 6th place. And, you're looking at, okay, we'll be a 1 seed. One loss could have you jump back to the 6th seed, and now you're playing you're going to have to play 1, 2, 3 more games to get to the championship instead of just 2 games to get to the championship game.
Right. And I mean, look, and here's the thing that I will say. Now, yes, this team plays its best when it's back against the wall, and Pinion has the green light to shoot every 3 on God's green earth because Lord knows that boy likes to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say, and then we'll wrap things up here, but what I will say is this. You've got to be careful. Every game must be treated as your last. And I'm going to sound like a coach here, but every game must be treated like your last because you have too many variables that are unstable to where, like Cooper said, you can go from not playing on day 2 to playing on day 1. I mean, there's so many things going on with this conference right now and where the seeding is for men's basketball. You have to play like you're pretty much in the conference championship because we saw what Arkansas State did last season where they were, I think, the 6th seed, and then they went on to play in the championship against James Madison after Freddie Hicks, who hit a game winner against Appalachian State, and then they went on to lose James Madison, who James Madison ended up going to the tournament. Because, I mean, let's be real here. If you don't win the Sun Belt Conference tournament, no matter what people are saying on ESPN, Fox, or CBS, you're not making the tournament.
Nope.
You win the tournament, you win the conference, you go to the tournament. You don't win the conference, you're playing in some other postseason tournament.
You're playing in the not-in tournament, the NIT or the
CBI or
that crap's
whatever.
Stupid. If you're not in the tournament, if you're not in the big March Madness tournament, don't try to play in any other non.
Yeah,
It's pointless. No one cares. I mean, if I'm being honest, when we were in the CBI last year, I could care less because it's postseason play. We're getting an extra rep. Blah blah blah. Yeah, no one cares.
If you're not playing for the national championship, you shouldn't be playing at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the NIT, okay, that's cool. Not in tournament, okay. Now March Madness, it's like, yeah, that means something. But if you're in the NIT, no one cares if you win the NIT. You'll get shown on ESPNU at 7 p.m. for the NIT championship game. Whoop whoop.
Yeah, you'll get to raise a banner. Yay!
Cool. We won the not-in tournament.
The National Invitational Tournament.
It's not in tournament.
Whatever it is. Anyways, so I think that's going to pretty much do it for this week here on Red Wolf Roundtable. Of course, when we come back, we'll talk more men's, women's basketball. And then, hey, we'll have a little bit more baseball to talk about. So the season is coming away. And put me in, Coach, because I'm ready to go. You've been watching Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Thought he was going to say something. Stick around for next week. Thank you guys for watching.